Come on down. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you to turn off the sound on your electronic devices, and we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Tim Moran. It's my pleasure to serve as the president of the Big Canoe Property Owners Association Board of Directors, and I call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our board members. Amy Tropfenbaum is our vice president, Terry Stewart, our treasurer, Mark Green, our secretary, Elton Gogolin, and Bob Littell, our at-large members, and Mike Ziegler, our representative from the Big Canoe Company. Thank you all for joining us today. We're also privileged to have Bill Thurber, the chair of finance, here today, and Wes McDonald from Geosyntec Consultants. Now, let us review the public meeting schedule for the remainder of this year for the board public meetings. The board will convene in the Mountains View Room at 5 p.m. on the last Thursday of the month from July through October. In November, it'll be the third Thursday of the month. And finally, our annual meeting will be held Saturday, December 2nd at 10 a.m. right here at the Big Canoe Chapel. Turning our attention to today's agenda, we will announce the winner of the 2023 President's Award, present the slate of nominees for the POA Board of Directors. We will hear a mid-year administrative report from Scott Auer, a review of our financials from Scott and Bill Thurber, a progress report on the work at Lake Pettit Dam from Wes McDonald, and an update on Renew Big Canoe. Today, we are in the fourth year of establishing a sustainable process to achieve long-term goals. And we are now at a crucial stage where our efforts are bearing fruit. Let's reflect on the journey thus far. In 2020, we discussed building capital reserves, developing a well-defined strategic plan, and updating our master plan. By 2021, we had successfully established a capital contribution fee and had a focused, actionable strategic plan in place. We had completed a comprehensive survey, including one-on-one interviews with property owners, to determine our priorities. In 2021, we set our sights on funding 3 to 5 years' worth of capital projects. By 2022, we had secured a $15 million credit facility. Last year, we engaged in discussions on designing improvements to facilities based on our property owners' preferences, and today, in 2023, we proudly present the plans we have developed. So, we have arrived. We are ready to take action, and this year is indeed a remarkable one for Big Canoe. Let's shift our focus, though, for now, to what makes Big Canoe truly special, our volunteers. These dedicated individuals who generously give their time provide our community with an unparalleled advantage. Their incredible talent and spirit of sharing elevate our experience here far beyond what the physical facilities and our homes provide us. Today, we have the privilege of presenting the winner of the 2023 President's Award. This accolade recognizes a resident who has made outstanding contributions to making Big Canoe a better place for us all. Choosing one recipient from 14 highly deserving property owners nominated was no easy task. And although this year's winner is unable to join us here this morning, I kindly request that we acknowledge his achievements with a warm round of applause. This year's winner is Calvert Johnson. There he is. Thank you, Cal. Cal is an accomplished musician and educator who leads the Big Canoe Chapel Concert Series and demonstrated exemplary leadership as chair of the advisory board for the Knowledge Series. Under Cal's visionary guidance, the Knowledge Series blossomed into a beacon of knowledge, igniting interest in a wide range of topics, In addition, Cal served as chair of the Community Center Committee, spearheading the study of the feasibility of a permanent community center. Cal's dedication to environmental conservation is evident through his role as chair of the Conservation Committee. He has overseen 8 subcommittees addressing critical issues such as wildlife management, non-native invasive species, hemlock woolly adelgid control, recycling and pollution, and archaeological preservation. One especially noteworthy achievement was the successful fundraising for the bronze sculpture of a mother bear with 3 cubs located at the entrance to Playfield Park. And there he is with Mama Bear. The sculptures serve as a poignant reminder of the importance of coexisting harmoniously with wildlife. The bear family represented had been euthanized by the DNR after becoming nuisance bears, raiding unsecured garbage and damaging homes. Today, the joy of watching children interacting with the statues of that bear family is a reminder of the importance of environmental education and the precious connection between humans and the natural world. And if Cal were here today, he would remind me to remind you, don't feed the wildlife. There's a kiosk right by the bear statue with plenty of information that's constantly being updated so that you can teach your family, guests, and children, grandchildren about that precious interaction. Beyond Big Canoe, Cal's dedication extends to supporting local communities, veterans, and promoting equality and justice. Cal has made significant contributions as chair of the board of directors for the Artreach Foundation in Atlanta, chair of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Concerts Committee, and as a participant in the Jerusalem 2000 Building Presence, Building Peace Committee. He served on the board of the North Georgia Community Foundation in Gainesville, Georgia, and has been the concert manager and executive director for the Casual Classics concert series in Jasper since 2018. Thank you, Cal, for your outstanding commitment and contributions to our community. Next, I would like to acknowledge the role of those who serve on the POA Board of Directors. We not only devote time to the association and our community, but we also bear specific responsibilities as outlined in the Big Canoe Covenants and bylaws and the Georgia Code for Nonprofit Corporations. These responsibilities are anchored in 3 core principles: the duty of obedience, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of care. The duty of obedience ensures compliance with laws, regulations, and organizational policies. The duty of loyalty mandates that the board members act in the best interest of the organization. Lastly, the duty of care necessitates active participation and prudent decision-making. This year, we have 4 candidates vying for the 2 open positions on the 2024 board. The winning candidates will serve 3-year terms, contributing their expertise and dedication to our community. At this time, I ask that each candidate rise as I call your name. Jim Keneally. Thank you, Jim. And Craig Price. Thank you, Craig. And Sandy Polera. Thank you, Sandy. Got a few whoops in there. And Mike Voke. Thank you. I encourage all property owners to participate in the events organized by the election committee, to meet the candidates, and please stay updated through the POA website as the campaign commences on September 1st. In conclusion, I extend my sincere gratitude to all the candidates for their willingness to serve on the board. Regardless of the election results, I hope we can find a place for each of you within our network of volunteers in 2024. Once again, I thank you all for joining us today, and let us continue working together to make Big Canoe an even more remarkable place to live and thrive. Now allow me to invite our General Manager, Scott Auer, to take the stage and present our mid-year administrative report.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Can you guys hear me okay? Check, 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 check. Good? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming on a sultry day. We could have done this meeting at the Rock Slide and it would have been much faster. I'd like to start out, this is kind of fun for us because we get engrossed in the day-to-day issues of Big Canoe, and once a year we get to look back at the last 6 months. And when we look back and put all this together, it's actually a lot of fun because we've done an awful lot in 6 months. So let me take you through a little bit of a tour. Everything we do starts with our strategic plan. We spent an awful lot of time building that in 21. And as I've said before, I hate it when strategic plans end up in a binder and they end up on a shelf and they get about that much dust on them. And then you move your offices and you throw them in a dumpster. I watched that happen at Eastman Kodak, and you kind of see what happened to Eastman Kodak. So we don't really want that to happen here. So we try really hard to keep this plan alive. And for those of you who maybe weren't here in 2021, I'll always start out by reading it. Big Canoe is safe and secure. That's really important. Residential community. So for those of you who wonder, are we a resort or whatever? No, residential community. Providing the harmonious integration of the natural beauty of the mountains, everything that Cal spent a huge amount of time doing with the Conservation Committee and all the subcommittees of the Conservation Committee was all aimed at exactly that. With high quality amenities, that's really important for Renew Big Canoe. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And well-maintained and updated infrastructure. So it sounds really good. I mean, I always look at that and say, like, yeah, we chose the right place to live. This is pretty cool. But how do we bring that to life? And the way we brought that to life was the committee came up with 5 high-level strategic objectives. So everything we do in our staff and the conversations with the board are always about, are we delivering on those 5 high-level strategic objectives? And so the first one is to enhance the property owner and guest experience. We're all property owners. We get to invite guests here all the time to come up and marvel at how lucky we are to live here. So we think about them too. And if you look at what we've been doing, these are past events. So this is actually on Valentine's Day. My lovely wife Cindy right there. This was St. Patrick's Day. Second year in a row, we got rained out and the rabbit had to go inside, but I don't think the kids care because they get the eggs faster. Works out really nicely. This was very recent. It was about 190 degrees out there on 4th of July, and I'm taking this judging very seriously. You can see that in that picture. So this is the watermelon eating contest. And then this was Memorial Day, opening up the renovated beach club. So a lot of fun things that we try to do to entertain us, our children, and our grandchildren. Upcoming events, we're calling this October Festival rather than Oktoberfest, and you'll find out why as we get a little bit closer. But Amanda's planning all kinds of unique and fun things that are a little bit different and build on what we've been doing for years with Oktoberfest. That's October 7th. It'll be a lot cooler on October 7th than it is today. Halloween celebration. Rumor has it that the Jeep guys, the Jeep Club, are going to be creating an amazing decoration parade of really cool tricked out Halloween Jeeps. So rumor has it, it's going to be pretty neat. Thanksgiving at the clubhouse is always like, boom, sell out. So you could probably start thinking about reservations today, except they're not open. But when they are open, act quickly. And then Winter Ball will be on December 8th this year. Clubhouse, thank the Lord. 600 pieces of new furniture. If I have to sit in one more meeting on those banquet chairs, I think I'm going to die. But anyhow, 600 pieces. They're all coming next week. We start filling, unfortunately, a dumpster on a week from Sunday. And it will take 2 days to actually disassemble all the stuff we have, clean it out, bring new stuff in, assemble all the chairs, tables, all of those things. So on Wednesday of that week, we'll reopen, and it'll look a whole lot nicer and a whole lot more comfortable. New patio furniture has already just arrived at Duffers. That stuff was looking a little bit third world. It doesn't look third world anymore. That's very nice. And we're doing seasonally updated menus, still weekly specials, and new events. And we're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about the clubhouse a little further into the presentation. Marina, brand new pontoon fleet. Those boats are incredible and beautiful, and we're just so blessed to have that as an amenity here. And of course, we did these new patios, which have become the place to hang out and watch the sunset and the eagles. A really beautiful place, especially when you bring your boat back at about, 8 o'clock at night and you don't have all your wine drank yet. That's a really nice place to go. I've heard that. I haven't experienced that exactly, but it is true. It is really fun. All amenities. So we have updated retail everywhere now. Our retail sales are amazing. All of these fun things at the Beach Club, the misting fans, all kinds of new apparel. Black Bear Pub is always selling stuff and selling out of stuff with Mahila really fast. We're doing quite well on Big Canoe merchandise. New retail experience at Racket Club, Beach Club, Wildcat Pool, and every week we're coming up with something new that is being introduced by Allie. And coming soon. We talked about this on June 3rd when hopefully many of you were here. So Renew Big Canoe. We have this beautiful canoe lodge that is this sort of caught in half the past, half the future, doesn't quite know what it wants to be. Long-range planning committee said, we know what we want it to be. We want to give it back to the property owners. So the lodge, why? The lodge has ample, relatively flat parking, something that's amazingly rare in Big Canoe. We can increase the meeting space. Scott gets kicked out of his office right there. That's where all the meeting space will be. We have a beautiful beachfront area, a great level patio. We can add overhead pavilion there, kind of like Wildcat, and make that a great place to be. And that whole building then will go back to a single purpose facility that the property owners can use. And we won't be constantly kind of jockeying back and forth between property owner events and POA things and need for conference rooms and where should we meet next and all of those kind of things. So that's a really important part of the Big Canoe, of Renew Big Canoe. Clubhouse, and we're going to talk a lot more about this here in a little bit, but just as a reminder, the clubhouse is not a clubhouse expansion. Even some really smart people I know in this room said, how's the clubhouse expansion doing? It's not an expansion. It's a renovation. Basically, the same dining capability we have today on the veranda and on the patio and in the Black Bear Pub, all that is moving to the other side of the building. So we're not expanding the dining capacity. We are expanding the veranda, which means we're expanding the meeting capacity and banquet capacity, but not dining. So more indoor-outdoor seating spaces. So right now, if you're along the front of the veranda, it's a beautiful view. It's terrific, but there aren't that many seats along there. We'll have many, many, many more seats that are indoor-outdoor dining seats in the new clubhouse. Also, new Mountains View bar, because we all know the bar that we have in Black Bear Pub was too small when it was built in 2006. And it's a huge bottleneck right in the middle of the kitchen and the veranda. So better connection with the golf amenity, 4-season veranda with larger seating capacity. So when we think about acoustic showcase, when we think about property owner weddings and events, when we think about board meetings, when we think about all the different things that we have to do that people are clamoring space for, that, remember, Cal was working on a group once upon a time to say, should we build a community center in Big Canoe? The answer was no, but to some extent, the clubhouse is our community center, but it's kind of missing the community center room. So this gets us the community center room on today's veranda and moves all the dining back to where it was supposed to be when they first designed the clubhouse back in 2006. Better employee experience. Again, you probably remember those pictures of people with trays and their drinks, and they're trying to come out of the kitchen. They're trying to cut across the pub. They're trying to go down 3 steps. It's maddening, actually. Go on a Friday night, it's not a lot of fun. And if you're the poor hostess that's sitting there and you're trying to deal with, is there a table open? Where am I? You can't even see the veranda. You can't see the Scotty room, and you can barely see the dogwood room behind you. So nobody would ever design that setup on purpose. It's just not possible. It kind of evolved, and we're trying to unevolve it and put it back the way it should have been. So Clubhouse will require a property owner vote, as you all know, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go further. Objective 2, continuous improvement of all amenities and infrastructure. This was the Creek 2 Bridge that we tore out and rebuilt earlier in the year, which is kind of covered bridges are part of Big Canoe's DNA almost. So that one's pretty visible from Wilderness. We wanted to make sure it's visible for a long time to come. We've been replacing all these old torn up wooden benches and things with those kind of picnic tables and benches that'll last years and years and years and years. This was the Sunset Patio under construction. This is the rock slide. This is where we should have had the meeting. And our kids don't really care about that, but it looks pretty beautiful over there. And it needed to be replaced because those were all kind of torn up, rotted wooden steps. So we said, while we're doing it, why don't we make it look like something to be really proud of? This was at the beach club area. The stream, there is a stream, believe it or not, that runs under that patio in that wonderful material corrugated metal pipe, and that had rotted out and was turning into sinkholes. So we fixed all of that before we opened up the beach club this year. And again, back to Cal. It's funny, Cal's influence seems to trickle through a bunch of these slides, and we didn't plan it that way. When I was going back through it yesterday, I'm like, did that, was involved with that, was involved with that. It's pretty neat, actually. So these are the guys digging up an invasive. That is a Mahonia that escaped from somebody's yard, and it's sitting in the middle of our forest, and it shouldn't be there. Racquet Club, all new foundation. That was our oldest building. You know, it's kind of a treasure in Big Canoe, and it was falling down. And so we fixed new foundation, all new paint, refinished floors. We've turned it into a really great retail and party space. It's a beautiful spot up there at the Racquet Club. So we will be doing more and more with that as we do more and more events in the village core. This was, again, Beach Club. We replaced the old drainage system. This was a old timber wall in the handicap lot that was falling down, and then again fixed all the rock slide and stairs. So we did all that in the spring to get ready for opening for this year. And Choctaw is coming soon, and we have those same beautiful corrugated metal pipes that were all underneath Creek and that were underneath the Beach Club and that are underneath a lot of things here. That is all being replaced because the drainage system just fundamentally doesn't work on Choctaw anymore. And the irrigation system is just about as bad as the drainage system, so that's also being replaced. And the new systems are great because Kevin can turn it on and off exactly where he wants to, water portions of holes, water just the greens, etc. Right now, you kind of turn it on, it just kind of looks like a party out there, but it wastes an awful lot of water, and it puts water where you don't want it. So that's coming soon as well. That'll be happening all through 2024. Number 3, create a culture, this is kind of important, that attracts and retains motivated employees. 60% of our expenses here at Big Canoe is payroll. Out of a $20 million business, that's a really big number. We are a service business. So what's been done, we established a CARES team under Kathy Jones. She created that. It's a team that lets employees know we care. So for example, this was National Picnic Day, and they went down, they got Chick-fil-A, and they brought it out to all the guys who didn't really have time to go to lunch and stop whatever they were doing, so we took lunch to them, that type of thing. All kinds of employee promotions. Ricky brought back his award ceremony for the volunteers this year for the first time in years. Quarterly luncheons, we do birthdays, we do awards. I'm getting an award. I didn't know. I got an award. For 3 years, you get a little thing or something. I'm like, wow, Kodak, I had to be like 15 or something like that, but 3 years. Anniversaries, star awards, which are people that go above and beyond their normal daily activities. So we celebrate that every quarter with our employees. And we also beefed up, the board was very kind and let me beef up the 401k program. It was an old style 401k, so people were not able to max out their contributions. Now they can. And I'd like to welcome a few new faces. They're not so new anymore, but in looking back over the last 6 months, they're new. We have Elaine Fitzgerald, who works with me in the POA Lodge as the office manager, and also with Kathy as the Human Resources Administrator. You've got Stacy Anthony, our Membership and Lifestyle Director. You probably met Stacy. Elisa Long, she is working on the website and handles most of our electronic communications, so she's in Mark De La Vina's team. And you've probably met Christina, who is a food and beverage manager who works for Mahila over at the clubhouse. And coming soon, we talked about this before, we have administration people sitting in conference rooms and utility closets right now after what happened to the Chimneys building. So the plan is, as part of the long-range plan here and Renew Big Canoe, is to take the Chimneys building and rebuild it into administration. And what does that do? It lets us co-locate all the POA staff. Right now we're spread out all over 8,000 acres. It's very hard to just run into somebody at a water cooler and say, hey, I meant to ask you about this. Those conversations don't happen. And when they happen is a really good thing, because it kind of helps with expediting communications and getting rid of misunderstandings. It takes advantage of limited parking space. Parking space in front of the Chimneys is not good, and it's probably never going to be good. It can be a little bit better, but not really good. So that is a tough place to think of that as a big venue for all kinds of things. It's sort of a perfect place if you need to put 25 administration people. Partially paid for through insurance settlement. We managed to get about $650,000-ish insurance settlement from the little disaster that happened on Christmas Day. So that helps us offset a lot of that cost. And obviously, if you're looking for recruiting and retention, you really don't want to show people that your office is going to be in a conference room. It's better to show them that your office is going to be in a real office. Number 4, enhance the well-being and safety of property owners, guests, and employees. So this is 6 months of public safety calls. Been about 368 calls. You can see, thank God, literally, these guys are here. 176 EMS calls for the community. And that is, it's just every day they make me very grateful to live here, because they can be at my door in 10 minutes, and I have had to prove that once. And a lot of communities, especially in the mountains, you don't get that. And 154 rules and regulations, of which 17 are noise, 24 parking, 13 are pesky pets, and 100 of them are traffic. And if you look at who that is, well, that would be mostly us. 114 residents, 19 guests, and 2 contractors. So it's, the speed thing, and that was the whole discussion about LSVs and things like that. We all need to slow down and be a little more careful on the roads. And also, this was amazing. This was just so great. So over there, you've probably never seen this, because it's way back in Hubbard Road, and people don't even know it's there. That horrible-looking thing over there, that is our live fire safety training building. And that's where Ricky and actually some of the guys from Pickens and Dawson in the past, fire companies, have come in, and they actually train, fire, burning, smoke, flames, heat, and train how to actually go into burning buildings, how to put out fires and things like that. So it was looking a little old. We brought some people out and said, hey, we got to repair that. And the guys who do welding and stuff who looked at that said, you can't even weld to that material anymore. It's so shot and old and been burned too many times and all of these things. And so all of a sudden we were looking at a $100,000 expense to something that we felt was really, really important. So enter the Big Canoe volunteer fire guys, who said, you know what? We can raise the money for that. Raise the money for that? That's an awful lot of money. Yeah, we can raise the money for that. So they created the Casino Night fundraiser, which we hadn't done in years. And talk about planning an invasion. It was immaculately run, just amazing. So Terry Stewart, Bob Troffenbaum, all of our public safety staff, the PECC committee, and a ton of volunteers made an amazing night happen. And if you weren't there, it was a beautiful night to be proud of what Big Canoe can do. And they raised $75,000 from the property owners to help offset the cost of a new building. So instead of us spending $100,000 of our budget, probably going to have to spend about $20,000 of our budget, which I think is pretty nice. So thank you. It was awesome. So the next thing, still thinking about safety, is our infamous postal facility, which, the changes that we plan on making, the building of the new building next to the package porch, means no parking lot, slalom course, that's kind of good. Flat parking, we don't have much flat parking here, but where we do have it is kind of in front of the package porch, which is good, so we can leverage that. It's going to give us 20% additional capacity. We are moving all the postal boxes down the hill, but it's being designed to give us 20% additional capacity. And if we got rid of the big boxes, it would be 33%, so we have some room to grow there too. And then, of course, one stop, so you don't have to park twice, you don't have to get in and out of your car. As somebody said to me, it reduces the chance for auto accidents by 50%. I said, well, that sounds pretty good. I like that. And safer walkways. And last but not least, Objective 5. Make decisions for the governance of Big Canoe in a transparent, ethical, and fiscally responsible manner. So let's look at this. This is, again, this is through 5 months. I saw June's numbers, which are nice. Saw June's numbers for the first time last night, but they're not in these slides because the Finance Committee hasn't seen them yet, which they'll see next week, and the board sees it in 2 weeks. So this is 5 months. So Clubhouse is a loss of $220, variance to budget, and remember, this is through May. We make all of our money on the Clubhouse in the summertime and in October. The rest of the year, we're carrying a huge amount of salary, and there's just not enough covers to offset that. We'll look at covers here in a minute. The variance there is largely back-of-the-house labor. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And year-to-date revenues, though, in Black Bear Pub are $200,000 higher than they were in 2021, which was in recent history the best year we've had in a long time. So even though sometimes it feels like, wow, there's some empty tables there or whatever, I can't get a reservation. Well, part of why you can't get a reservation is because we're running a really heavy operation. So over $200,000 higher year-to-date than we were in 2021 through May. Everything looks very strong, very positive. Aquatics was $10,000 off a budget. That's because we decided that we would actually hire professional people to install all the inflatables and floating things rather than having us sitting out there trying to lower buckets of concrete and hope that the slide didn't blow away. So we actually got somebody who knew what they were doing, and they are going to be doing it for us in the future. Also, Marina was the only other one that was off slightly. Marina's been really interesting this year. Number one, the weather for the first 5 months was pretty terrible, so it rained all the time on the weekends. Second of all, though, our renting numbers in Big Canoe are way down. So all the people I talk to who have short-term renters, way off compared to the last 2 years. And when that's off, John doesn't rent as many boats because that's one of the things that they do when they come here. So lack of renters has definitely hurt the projection or the actuals on the pontoon boats. But net total income is negative $192, which is $16,000 better than budget. And again, the amenities make all their money in the summertime and in the fall, not in the first part of the year. If you look at Clubhouse covers, this is neat. We talk about transparent and ethical. I don't know if you know, but on the website, we always publish an unbelievably detailed financial report each and every month. The people that, when Bobby Jones used to be here and stuff like that, they were like, oh my gosh, no other club puts out what you guys put out. And we put it out every month, and we do. That's part of our policies and procedures, and it's all there. Good, better, worse, bad, it's out there. There's also about 25 pages of things called key metrics that we track, and those are pretty interesting. If you ever are up late at night and can't sleep and you want to go through it, there's some really interesting metrics on there about overtime and covers and number of pontoon boats rented versus the last few years and stuff. This is covers at the Clubhouse. So you can see the top line is this year, and we are higher. This actually has June numbers in it. We are trending higher and are higher than the past 3 years that we've had at the clubhouse. I don't pay much attention to 2020 because 2020 was a bit of an anomaly, but the other 2 years were pretty good. Also, same thing with Duffers. Duffers is higher through June than any previous year in recent history and is flat, and Clubhouse is higher and rising. So that team in there, going through some really tough times that we're going to talk about, is still handling a huge amount of volume each and every week. Year-to-date financial summary, so $5 million of actual revenue, that's $59,000, better than budget. Combination of a higher number of assessments than was originally predicted through sales of homes and things last year, and also higher interest income. So when we talk about sometimes our loan interest is higher than it used to be, well, so is the interest on all of our investments and bank accounts, so they somewhat offset each other. Also, operating expenses, so minus 3.3, that's $128,000 better than budget. Most of that, a big part of it, is AECD, which is architectural control. And those are fines associated with not following our architectural controls. So Trina and Ron are pretty serious about it. The board's pretty serious about it. When sometimes people say, well, we don't enforce things or whatever a Big Canoe. No, we really do. It's right there. So that helps a lot with this operating expenses. Amenity, as I said, is $16,000 to the good. You add all that together, and through May, we were running ahead of budget, ahead of plan, by $205,000 in cash. If you look at June's number, I'll just give you a little hint. If you look at June's number, it's about $250,000 higher than planned. So we're about $225,000, $227,000 higher than what we had planned to be through the end of June. Depreciation is running hotter than what we expected, and that's because we've been doing all of those projects and fixing many, many, many things that have been deferred in Big Canoe for a long time. And so net income, including depreciation, is $120,000 to the good versus plan. This is cash, as Bill Thurber said in his financial presentation about Renew Big Canoe. If you haven't watched that, please do. It's a great presentation. It also teaches you a little bit about Big Canoe Finance 101, and Bill's going to talk to us briefly here this morning. But cash is king. Cash is cash is cash. It's really king. So basically, this is our cash situation. This was beginning on 1/1. These are all bank accounts. So we track an operating account, a capital fund account, the master plan CCF fund, and a capital reserve fund. The capital reserve fund, we tend to just dismiss it and think of it as a emergency fund. We know it's there. It's never been touched. We never intend to touch it. It's there in case you had a huge forest fire, tornado, something like that. It truly is an emergency fund, and it needs to be paid back within 3 years of using it. So we kind of set that one aside, but it's real cash sitting in our bank, and so that was $8.2 million. At the end on 5/31, we're sitting at 777. That's kind of a Boeing number, I think, 777. But the amazing thing is we started out at 8.2, we're ending at 7.8, and we've still spent $3 million on capital so far this year, all those projects we talked about, and also our principal payments of roughly $476, which is the fire truck and the debt service that we have on our existing loan. So we've managed to service our debt, we've managed to spend $3 million of capital, and quite frankly, we haven't taken much of our cash, which is a wonderful position to be in coming out of May. So we spend a lot of time on cash flow and making sure we're managing everything correctly. Just for fun, just so you know, we used to spend about $3 million a year on capital. So we're now running to make up for a lot of lost time and a lot of things that were ignored here for a long, long time. Our budget is more like $6 million of capital this year. And with that, I'll let somebody else talk for a minute who's even smarter than I am on finances, and that would be Mr. Thurber, who is the chair of our finance committee. Bill.
Good morning. So we had two sessions last Monday, which was focused primarily on, as Scott said, kind of some basics around our finances and more detailed discussion about how we went about getting our loan and about Renew Big Canoe. And I'm just going to go through a couple of quick slides that I think might be valuable for those who either haven't watched the video or didn't attend the meetings. They were very well attended, both a morning session and an evening session, and very spirited Q&A sessions afterwards. The morning session, I think, was about an hour and a half of questions, not only about Big Canoe Finance, but about the Renew Big Canoe initiative, and a lot of good questions. People were very engaged. It was a lot of fun, actually. So with that, we'll talk about a couple of things. So one of the things we've tried to emphasize with people, because there's a lot of noise that goes on about how come we're not more profitable? How come the clubhouse doesn't make money? Well, we're a nonprofit. We're a 501c4, which you see the definition up there. Basically, we're organized specifically not for profit, and we're mission-based. We have a mission to serve a social welfare, which is the good of our property owners. But we also have businesses that we run. Scott showed you the amenity results. I mean, we run a clubhouse, we run golf courses, and they generate, for the Internal Revenue Service definition, unrelated business income. So you can see the definition up there as well. It's basically income that's generated from activities that are not specifically related to our not-for-profit status. And if we were profitable, if we generated actual net income from those, we would owe tax on those. And Scott mentioned we've been doing a lot of work around here. We have a tremendous base of fixed assets, buildings and roads and bridges and clubhouses and such, that we depreciate over time, and that gets charged as an expense to the business. And so when you net that down, we generate a loss, which people say, well, a loss is bad. Well, yes and no. I mean, we generate a loss, but we generate a lot of cash. And because we generate a loss, we don't owe tax, which I think is a good thing. So losses are not necessarily bad, and I think we focus too much on that. And at the finance committee level and at the management level and with the board, the focus is really on cash flow. Scott took my phrase away from Monday. I mean, cash is king. The income statement says what it says, but at the end of the day, it's how much cash do we generate, and how do we use that cash to improve and serve the mission of being a nonprofit. So a couple of key highlights that I shared on Monday as well. We generate significant amounts of cash. So the slide that Scott had up there about income before depreciation, that's after all of our cash expenses, including interest on the debt, and we call that cash flow. And so one of the points I made Monday was, when you go back and look at the last 5-6 years or so of operations here, we consistently generate $4+ million a year in our operating of the business. A pretty impressive track record. 1.6 million was on the slide that Scott showed about our May year-to-date financials. Very strong performance there. Our budget this year, I believe, is income before depreciation of about 4.1 million, and we're on the road there because, as Scott shared, through June we're well above 200,000 ahead of plan. So really strong financial performance. We have a very strong balance sheet. For those non-finance people, balance sheet is all of our assets. It's all of our fixed assets. It's all of our cash. We have $52 million of assets at 12/31 of 2022. Our golf courses, our buildings, our clubhouses, and our cash. So when you look at the mix, 95% of that 52 million is represented by those buildings and clubhouses. About 78% is there, and about 18% or so is cash. We had well over 8 million, as Scott showed, in cash at the end of 22. So we have very strong owner equity as a result, $44 million. So owner equity, that's all of our ownership position in this wonderful organization. And when you have strong owner equity, you're in a very strong financial position. And that's what allowed us to go seek the $15 million credit facility that Tim mentioned earlier. And it was a very competitive process with a number of banks who were very eager and anxious to lend money to us. And as a result, we came away with what I think the board feels, and I know the Finance Committee feels, was a really fabulous structure for being able to accelerate these Renew Big Canoe projects. So I'm going to shift gears, and this is my last one. So we also are audited every year. The 2022 audit was conducted by a firm called Malden & Jenkins, LLC. They are a very reputable independent accounting firm. They're a top 100 national firm. Their partner in charge of our audit is a practice leader in their not-for-profit practice area, a fellow named John Schultz, very knowledgeable guy. We met with them, we meaning the Finance and Audit Committee, met with them back in March before they commenced the audit, and they shared with us exactly what the scope of the audit was going to be and how they were going to go about it. And then we met with them again in June prior to them releasing the report. They shared the results of the audit with us, shared a draft of the report with us, as well. And it was very clean. Because we have so much of our assets in fixed assets and cash, that kind of took on a higher significance in the audit in addition to their normal audit scope. You can see here there are very specific areas where they spent time validating. So, as far as the cash goes, I mean, they do third-party verifications of our cash balances, meaning they go directly to the financial institution and get our bank balances, and then they review that against our internal accounting records and our account reconciliations. Fixed assets, I said, were very important as well. They reviewed all of our what's called a fixed asset register, which is basically a database of how we are bringing assets onto our books. They do independent verification of purchases when we buy assets, and they also would verify if we had a project that was in process and then ultimately converted to a fixed asset. They look at that as well. And then lastly on that topic, they independently recalculate our depreciation expense so that they're confirming, or if they find otherwise they're non-confirming, that if we say an asset has a 10-year life, that we're depreciating it appropriately. And so at the end of the day, we received what's called an unmodified audit opinion. For those who are not CPAs in the room, I'm not a CPA. That's really the strongest opinion that an independent accounting firm gives to a client. It means that the financial statements in all material aspects are presented fairly in accordance with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles for the accountants in the room. So we were very pleased that we wound up there. They were at the June board meeting and presented the results. John presented in more detail than what I'm going through here. And it's out there on the website. I would encourage you, what do you say, Scott, if you're having trouble sleeping at night? I would encourage everyone to watch that portion of the board meeting, because I think it's important for people to know that, we're a serious organization. The audit is a serious undertaking, and, they were complimentary of the accounting staff in specifics, and they were very complimentary of the governance model that we use here at Big Canoe around the finance function. So, all good things to know.
Thank you. So now one of my favorite topics. So when I got here, a dam to me was something you built with a sandcastle on the beach, and you put some sand there, and the wave would come, and it would kind of hold back the water. I probably spend more time on this and the clubhouse than probably any other two topics. And we're really, really blessed to have this guy here. We spent a lot of time together too. We haven't quite started visiting each other's birthday parties in Chattanooga or whatever, but it's getting closer. Geosyntec is one of the top companies in the country in terms of civil engineering and consulting. They handle huge clients like the TVA, and we're very thankful that Wes is part of our team. Basically, he just acts like he's part of the POA as far as being an engineering employee. And like I said, we spent a lot of time on a lot of different things related to the dam. So Wes came down because I asked him to today, and he'll do a 6-month update for you guys. So Wes, come on up.
I didn't practice this. Thanks. I'm gonna test it. There we go. Great. Get that picture off of there. Good morning, everybody. As Scott said, I'm Wes McDonald. I'm a senior engineer with Geosyntec Consultants, and I'm based in Chattanooga, but we have a large office in Kennesaw, so down the road. And I've been working up here with the POA for about 10 years on Lake Pettit Dam. Originally just doing the biannual engineering inspection. Every 2 years we were up here inspecting it, and much more recently been up here much more often doing a lot more projects than just the engineering inspection. And I'll like to just walk you through what we've gotten done since I last spoke to the community, which was in December. I wasn't here in person, but just walk you through what we've been doing and what's upcoming so you can hear it from me. And besides just inspections, there's so much more to this facility that provides a amenity to the community. You want to make sure people are aware of it. So just since December, we've completed the low-level outlet test, interceptor drain designs, stability analysis have been submitted to the state. We've done our quarterly inspections, 2 of those so far this year. We've received approval on our emergency action plan. Also conducted a tabletop exercise with the community on that emergency action plan. And as part of, I'll get into the details of each one of these in a little bit, as part of some of the maintenance on the low-level outlet, we've created and gotten approval on the temporary emergency action plan. What we have upcoming is construction of some of these items, the interceptor drain specifically. Just making sure, everyone hears me okay, right? Just making sure, if I need to, great, thank you. And also we're gonna be initiating the design of the spillway replacement. And we'll also be doing construction of the low-level outlet improvements as well. So to date, just these last 7-8 months, a lot's been happening. The first item I wanted to go through was the low-level outlet testing, which is the LLO, you may see that abbreviated here, which is an important feature that's required for a dam of this size in Georgia. This state requires a method to lower the reservoir for emergency purposes only, and the volume is 2/3 of the volume has to be removed in approximately 10 days. So that's a lot of water, and you need a feature to do that when you need it. Ideally, you won't ever need it, but it needs to be there. So the low-level outlet accomplishes this. It was part of the original design and construction, but there was no record in the community of that piece of the infrastructure operating. So to make sure we know it will work when we need it, we went through this testing procedure. And really phase 1, we split it in 2 phases, was done almost right after we had our last meeting. And in phase 1, we worked with a specialty diving contractor to access the low-level outlet itself and get some dimensions of there. The low-level outlet, I guess for those who are unfamiliar, is a couple pieces of infrastructure. One consisting of a slide gate that's at the bottom of the lake, essentially 100 feet underwater. And then 2, there's a conduit that connects that bottom, the sluice gate to the downstream end where it drains into the creek. So that pipe's about 100 or 800 feet long and 3 feet in diameter. So to understand what was there, based on the limited information we had design drawings, we had as-built drawings. There was not any other information from construction. The contractor went up there and using the appropriate safety measures. These were guys fully trained in breathing apparatus, scuba diving type stuff. And so that they were up in there getting measurements. And so it was really detailed operation. What we were trying to do is put a plug in place so that if we test this gate, the reservoir will stay in place and that plug will hold in the case that the gate opens and is unable to close. So this was a very detailed operation. and consisting of getting information, detailed design, and construction of this plug. And there it is. I don't know if I can see. Is there a laser? Yeah, here it is being manufactured. And what it does, it sits right there behind the sluice gate. Here's your sluice gate, bottom of the reservoir. Here's where they start, and they had to go all the way up there. And this was very important to us because the conduit itself was not designed to take pressure. We could have put it at the bottom end, but the dam itself is an earthen embankment, and putting a plug at the downstream end would put pressure on the earthen embankment itself, and we don't want to do that for dam safety purposes. So the dam safety operation is very important as we go through this. If I didn't mention, it's a high hazard embankment in the state of Georgia, Category 1 dam, which is the highest level there is. There is a risk to it in terms of life loss should it fail. And that's why we're involved. We're the engineer of record on these items. So we got the dimensions. Phase 2, it was implemented. We built the plug and we installed it in April, May. And we were actually able to open the gate. The gate opened not as far as we wanted to, but it was able to open. We had evidence of that. We sent divers down. We got specific measurements of everything we needed. But during the opening, actually what happened was not the problem with the gate itself, but a feature called the stem, which connects the gate to where you control it at the top of the dam, is the stem. And it has stem guides, which you see here, the ones above water at the bottom. And actually, those were observed to crack in several of those while we opened it. So we stopped the operation for safety purposes. The gate can still be opened if there is an emergency, but to repair those, we're in the process of working out the design and replacement of those as part of it. So the gate itself is presently closed. The plug is still in place, and we're on the process of determining that replacement of those stem guides and to make sure the low-level outlet is continued to be used in the future. So that was a significant project we've been going through since December. Another project we've been working on is interceptor drain. Those are features that are on the downstream face of the dam that intercept some of the water that passes through the earthen embankment, and that's totally normal. Water does pass through an earthen embankment. It's not a solid plug that prevents water from moving. So water moves through the dam, and those pipes intercept it. They get the water out, and they put it on the face of the dam. And there's little known about that as well. So we conducted an inspection, and a video inspection especially, to get more information in terms of the size of those pipes, how deep they were, how long they went. And you can see in the image here a map of what we were able to find and the location of those. And the good news is they were a lot shallower than we thought they were. And so we use that to inform our design, and we've since completed a design of replacing those and submitted that to the state. As it's a Category 1 dam, it's required to, modifications internal to the dams required to go through the state to obtain a permit for construction. And we sent those to the state on the 28th of April. Along with that repair, we also redid the calculations for the stability of the dam, and we were able to determine that it meets the required factors of safety for the 3 load cases that we looked at, and those are requirements from the rules and regulations of the state of Georgia. So we had submitted those calculations as well to the state as part of that whole package for their review and approval. It's presently being reviewed. Any type of permit submittal like that, we do expect some type of comments. And we do understand that they may be sending the review of those calculations for the stability out to a third party for review. The stability analyses were sent in 1998 as well. The same thing happened. They reviewed them, had a third party review them, comments back and forth, and Geosyntec worked on that. I wasn't around, but that was just never formally approved nor rejected by the state. It was just kind of left in limbo. So we have sent those in. We've ran them with updated measurements of the piezometric levels, the water through the dam, and everything met the factors of safety that the state requires. We ran 3 load cases. It's a steady state, like a day-to-day condition. We ran a seismic condition, which is an earthquake loading, and we also ran a rapid drawdown. If the lake just dropped all of a sudden, what would happen? Because there's a chance for that kind of condition, the dam could fail on the lake side, not on the the downstream side. So, we're expecting some feedback from them soon. Like I said, some form of comment, ideally. Whenever that comes in, we'll address those and resubmit if needed, or if they approve it, we'll move forward with the construction of these drain replacements. We've also been conducting the quarterly inspections of the dam. The state requires the owner to do their own inspection of the dam, but the POA's taken it one step further and asked us as engineers to inspect that quarterly. Engineer's inspection is only required on this type of dam every 2 years. And so we have our eyes on it very often, more than what's required. Also, since the last time we met, the 2022 Emergency Action Plan, that's when we initially submitted it, was formally approved by Georgia Safe Dams. And that was an item that is also required by the state to maintain your permit. It really is the plan, should something go wrong out there, what will be done. And it's a coordination with not just the owner, but the county, the emergency responders in the area, firefighters, sheriff, EMA directors. So that outlines what would be done, and as soon as we got that approved, we had a tabletop exercise with the community, which is not required, but it was, I think, a great opportunity to make sure everybody who would respond in an emergency understands what could happen and what they need to do in terms of their role in communication. So we had, the picture on the lower part there is half the room. It was a good, probably 30, 40 people there participating in that, and it was a good exercise. The county sheriff, Pickens County Sheriff was there, the county EMA director was there, the POA staff and their emergency crews were there as well. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some of these. The Public Works Director for the county, yeah, the local utilities, yep. So that was great to take place and document. So in addition, I mentioned the plug is left in place and the gate is closed on the low-level outlet right now. We've also created a temporary emergency action plan that addresses that condition, so that should something happen while that's in place, there's slightly different operation. So it's a supplement to our existing, and that's been approved by the Safe Dams program as well, and we've sent that out to the responders. So the emergency response is in place should anything happen. So what we have upcoming, let me make sure I didn't miss anything there. Yeah. What we have upcoming is implementation of several of these things. But first, we're in the beginning process of starting the design for replacement of the spillway that's at Lake Pettit Dam. The spillway is an important feature. That's where the flow of the lake is passed the majority of the time. And we've seen through our recent analyses and actually known for some time that we need to update that. It presently won't handle the flows from the design storm event, which in this case, for this size of a dam, it's called the probable maximum flood. So it's not 100-year, 200, whatever. It's a huge thing that you really can't comprehend. It's 30 inches of rain or more, right, in a day, which is hard to think. Can I get half my yearly precipitation in one day? You think it's impossible? It's happened before. Houston's had one in the last 10 years. Tennessee had a 17-inch event in one day last year. So these large events can happen. And so maintaining that reservoir and the structural stability of this facility when those unfathomable events happen is important. So the update of that spillway is important to handle that flow. And also we would incorporate updated design measures in it, like under drains and filtered materials that's underneath it that presently don't exist there. The spillway's been in place 50 years. It's in a good condition for the age, but it's time, flow-wise and updates, it's time to get it updated. So also, when that permit is received from the state on the interceptor drains, we'll be constructing that, anticipating fall of this year, ideally. It will also depend on several things. I'm sure the POA will keep you updated and the community updated with some announcements when that happens. But look to see some equipment down on the downstream half of the dam, where Wolf Scratch Drive is. There'll be some action going on over there at some point. And then we'll continue our quarterly inspections. I mentioned the engineer inspection. The next one is scheduled for Q1 of 2024, but we'll be doing 2 others in the meantime. And then also the construction to improve the low-level outlet as we work through that improvement plan will occur possibly at the end of this year. So lots happening, a lot to still happen, and just kind of make sure you understand that there's a lot of planning and items to take place for a structure of this magnitude, and I think there's a good plan in place here that's being implemented. Like I said, 10 years ago, there was not much happening in regard with the dam, at least from where we were involved. So it's an important feature, and I think the POA's planning process is working here, and we're seeing probably in the midst of it right now for the dam. So that's it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you having me. Do you want me to stay?
We'll do questions at the end. We'll do questions at the end. So if I were you guys, I'd be sitting there and thinking like, wow, that all sounds pretty cool. How much is that going to cost? Right? That's what I'd be thinking. So again, watch that video if you can on the renewbigcanoe.org site, because we talked a lot about how all the money works here. We have, the Finance Committee and I go through monthly a cash flow analysis that Jane Hagan, our CFO, maintains. She and I go through it practically weekly. We have planned for $6.3 million of dam expenses between 23, 24, and 25. So we know where the cash is coming from all this stuff, as long as we keep generating the $4.2 million that we talked about, as long as we keep the same performance level that Bill was going through, that we've had over the past 6 years, we're in good shape. We know where the money's coming from to do this, and none of that money has anything to do with Renew Big Canoe. This has nothing to do with the credit facility, has nothing to do with the 3.46. It would be happening anyway, because we are really good at fiscally planning, and we watch it like a hawk, and the money is set. So, and Wes doesn't really think it's going to take $6.3 million, but we're conservative engineering types, so we kind of err on the side of like, let's make sure we got $6.3 million where we know we're going to get it. Which then is a great lead into this. So a few people have asked me, because quite frankly, we all left here on June 3rd, massively excited. Oh my gosh, best thing, it's really well thought out. This is going to be so exciting. And then there's always a few folks and blogs and stuff about, well, how come the carpet's red instead of blue? And we should not do the whole project because of that. All right, so I wanted to kind of step back a second, because it's really easy to get down into those details, and we will get down into those details before this is done, I promise. But why are we talking about Renew Big Canoe in the first place? Well, the first misnomer here is it has been sort of positioned to me that somehow this has become like my initiative, or this is the board's initiative. No. This is your initiative, right? This basically came from all that strategic planning work that we talked about. We went out, we spent like a bunch of time that summer, got thousands of survey results back. Everybody said, please deal with the trash facility, then deal with the post office, then deal with the clubhouse. So planning takes a little while, just like Wes was talking about. So this is the fruition of all that work and planning. So I think it's still the voice of the community, and this is really your initiative, not Scott's. I just executed for you. Second thing is, these ideas, they came from some of the brightest and most dedicated property owners that I've had the pleasure to work with in 3 years. You guys have maybe heard of the movie. Who's heard of the movie The Magnificent Seven? Okay? This is the Magnificent 28. Because each of those committees usually has about 7 people on it. So it started with the Strategic Planning Committee. We went through the strategic plan, went to the Reformed Long Range Planning Committee. It was led and is led by Joe Thompson. Joe Thompson is a licensed architect. He's practiced architecture in the state of Georgia for like ever, and then moved here. And so we've got him. We've got commercial real estate people on that team. We had bankers on that team. We had younger people, older people, part-time people, full-time people. We had a huge cross-section of what Big Canoe's all about. So another 7 fairly brilliant people here. These people are really, really brilliant. So you've already met, you've met my friend Bill, got Gene Morgia right there in front of me, some really great financial folks who said, oh my gosh, there's 3.46%. It's never going to be seen, probably in our collective lifetimes again. We can act now. We can take all those things that everybody said they wanted, that right now, based on our cash flow and the dam and everything else, we're not going to get to that stuff for like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years. But you know what? Because we're in such good financial shape, we got banks clamoring to help us out with that little problem. And so they structured an amazing deal around the 3.46 credit facility. So really smart people here. You guys elected these folks. They sit over there. There's another 7 of them. 7's a lucky number here, I think. Another 7 of those guys, and they've been working really hard on this through a couple different board situations, a couple different years, looking at the plans, working with long-range planning, talking to the finance committee, talking to us. So again, a huge number of people have worked on this, and these are really smart people. So a little bit of this is, who are you going to trust? You're going to trust all of these folks that have volunteered their time, that had great careers, that are amazing, right? Or you're going to trust, right? You're going to trust somebody that's just kind of like, well, you know, it really needs to be purple, and we should kill the whole thing. So I don't know. It puzzles me a little bit because, you know, maybe I'm just lucky because I get to work with these guys every single day, so I know what their capability is like. So trust me, you've got an amazing group of people, you know, fighting for our future. Next thing, current POA administration has proven that we got a pretty good track record of delivering stuff. I can't tell you how many times I hear, well, in 2006, we did it wrong. Well, I don't know. I wasn't here in 2006. I wasn't born in 2006. I wish that was true, but it's not true. But you know, we got to stop looking back. We've come so far, I think, in our processes, in our people, in our capabilities. We're in a very different place now than we used to be. You saw all the projects we've done. We did Creek, we've done the marinas, we've done the seawalls, we've done the racquet club, we've done the $1 million of roads a year, and we bring them in on time and on budget. We really do. We've got some excellent people who are helping to manage all these processes, and some really, really good contractors and engineers and architects. So, you know, at some point you gotta let the past go and focus on the future. There's that number again, 3.46. It's like, if we walk away from that, you know, shame on us, right? Because it's, even if we never build anything, we should take the money, put it in the bank, and earn, you know, 8% on it, right? Because it's amazing. You can't get that anymore. So the 15 million was purely designed to say, hey, community, this is what you all wanted. Let's do it faster. Let's not wait 7 years to begin the clubhouse. Let's not wait 9 years to begin the post office. Let's not wait another 11 years to do the next golf course while it falls apart underneath us, right? So that was the whole purpose of that. And last but not least, things aren't getting any cheaper. So when we did the Creek, basically we spent about $2 million on the infrastructure portion of Creek, about $300,000 on enhancements, $2 million on infrastructure. The number now for Choctaw, which is less work actually than Creek was, is 3.4. And it's only because sod has tripled in price, fertilizer has escalated hugely, labor is out of sight, transportation has gone nuts. It is getting really expensive to do construction and things. So if we look at a clubhouse today that we think is going to be a $6 million renovation, I have no idea what that's going to look like in 4 years, but it's going to be a lot more than $6 million. So again, we kind of got the stars aligned. We've got a really good strategy. We've got a really good track record. We've got this wonderful access to this credit facility, and things aren't getting cheaper and we're not getting younger. So it's a good time to dive in and get this done. So again, 5 top reasons why you should do Renew Big Canoe. And so when people start talking about, you know, air walls and stuff like that, we're going to get to all those details. But focus on this, because this is This is the real trust. This is who you're going to trust. So, good news. There's two great presentations. J.C. Chi, our architect, who is doing the clubhouse and working with us on the post office and worked with the Long Range Planning Committee. And just in case you didn't watch that, Quo, Dietrich, and Chi is one of probably the top company in the Southeast now. They keep winning award after award after award for all of their work in clubs and clubhouses and things like that. They're our architects. So we do surround ourselves with really good, smart people, and that's kind of how we work. It's a good practice to do. And Bill Thurber, both of their presentations are live on renewbigcanoe.org. Take a look. And like Bill said, we did answer about an hour and a half of questions. So when some people say, well, we need to have more dialogue or something, we've got about 3 hours of Q&As from last Monday that you can watch on Renew Big Canoe. Ballots, we even renewed how we do ballots, because the ballots were like unintelligible. And nobody could figure out, like, what do I do? And if I'm a lot owner, I get one, and it's that color. But if I'm a property, I get two. And anyhow, we kind of fixed all that. So you will get a beautiful, nice package. Just in case you didn't watch any of those, it'll have some information in it that you can read about. And also much, much simpler way of knowing where to sign, what to check, what the quorum's about, all of those things. That will come out on July 28th, and 4 weeks to get them back. So by the end of August, we'll have a decision, and we'll know whether we get really busy and start working on all these things, or whether we decided to take a different fork in the road, which would puzzle me and disappoint me an awful lot, because then that says all those years of work, all those committee meetings, all those surveys, all those voice of the community stuff, that's something changed. I don't know what, but that would not be a happy day. So, it's Q&A time. So, since you all are such shy and retiring individuals, I thought we might start with a few that I hear about quite a lot. And this is the one I hear about the most, and I get it. I really do get it. I'd be asking the same thing. It seems like we have staffing issues. How can we adequately staff an expansion of the clubhouse? It's a great question. So let me answer it a couple different ways. First of all, the clubhouse isn't an expansion. So the very first thing is the clubhouse is taking all the dining that's spread out between the patio and the veranda and the Black Bear Pub and gets in the way of the servers running across and all that. It's taking all that dining and it's moving it back to where the dining was supposed to be, which is two of the prettiest areas and best views that we have in Big Canoe, which is Mountains View and Sconti Room. We hardly ever use the Sconti Room, which is just a sin to me. It's a beautiful, beautiful room. Every architect we had come in here said, what are you guys doing? That needs to be like your main restaurant room. Why do you almost never use it? It's kind of like, well, you can't even see it from the hostess stand, and it's just so awkward for the kitchen, and it just doesn't work. So we're fixing that. We're taking it back to the way it was. So we're not expanding. However, if I were sitting out there, I would say, well, wait a minute, though. What about service? I hear all these things. What's happening? How can we invest money if the service isn't where we want it? So I'm going to tell you a story. There's been 2 really bad days in Scott's life in 3 years. Here. The first bad day was when the call came that said, we can't stop the lake from draining in Disher Room. That was a really bad day. The gate's closed. There's still a whirlpool. We don't know what to do. I'm on the phone with my friend Wes. That was bad day number 1. Bad day number 2 was in May of this year. And I got a call from Chef Michael Klein. And Michael and I had been fairly close. We would have meetings. We would talk back and forth and stuff about how things were going, which was pretty awesome. And he said, Scott, I got to leave. Got to leave what? Got to leave the kitchen? No, I have to leave Big Canoe. So we talked. And so if you think back to October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, one person can change the world. I really believe that. Jesus changed the world. One person can change the world. Michael changed the world. Michael came here. He built a whole new staff. The food quality went up to here. The ticket times were low. The consistency was great. Mahila didn't have to run for cover all the time because she was actually able to like deliver beautiful things that people were happy about. Tips went up. Servers were happy. Beautiful world. It was crazy. After 3 years, I was getting email after email. Oh, the clubhouse is so great. Oh my gosh, it's the best it's ever been. Bah, 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 bah. Michael left. And Michael didn't leave because he didn't like us. He didn't leave because he didn't like you. He didn't leave because, I just don't like Big Canoe anymore, whatever. Michael had some really tough problems, and Michael needed to be out of here to work them out. And Michael has told us a couple of times, I would like to come back someday. But he needed to do that. So now, here's where the problems start. Michael leaves. So then you've got a sous chef, and the sous chef is sitting there. He's like, Michael's my mentor. I've never really been a sous chef before. All this pressure now lands on me. I can't do that. So then the sous chef leaves. So then you got the lead line cook. The lead line cook standing there saying, whoa, hold it. The two guys that were just above me that were supposed to be these like really great master guys, they've left. It's all on me now. We're in the 2 busiest months of Big Canoe's entire year, and I'm dying. And I can go anywhere in Dawsonville or Pickens County and get a job that pays maybe not quite as much, but not bad, and I don't need to put up with all that craziness. So I'm leaving. So you just lost your 3 top people in the kitchen. And then you got a server. And the server now is saying, oh my gosh, I never know what I'm getting out of the kitchen. 1 minute it might be good, 1 minute it might be good, I don't know, whatever. My tips are going down, people are yelling at me again. I was going back to school anyway, because we always lose people in like the end of July because they go back to school in August. That's just something that happens here. I'll go early. I'll just buy, I don't need that either. One person can change the world. So, where are we? We're kind of holding it together. Our service went from here back down to here. Didn't go all the way back down, but it's here. And we need to fix it. And it has nothing to do with Renew Big Canoe. It has to do with leadership. So we are looking very rapidly and hard for the new Michael Klein. And we've been using a culinary recruiter. They just do culinary. And everybody I talk to, because I've interviewed 7 chefs now, I think, Carrie and I and some other folks like Jim Keneally have been helping out because Jim works at University of North Georgia and has some good experience with this. People want to be here. When you look at the resumes of some of these guys and they look at us and they look at our opportunity, they're like, oh my gosh, I want that job, right? So we're down to 3. And one of them has a last name of Gogolin, which it's an unusual name, related to 2 people we know really well. Chef Michael II. Chef Michael Gogolin is one of the finalists, went through the same process, went through the same recruiter, came to us in a really funny way, even though he's related to a board member, and is already here because he said, I can be here. I can help. Yes, I'll go through the same interview process and everything, but I love Big Canoe. I've been coming to Big Canoe probably, Pat, before he was born. He's been coming to Big Canoe pretty close. He wants to see this place succeed, so he is dying to be the one to get the job. But we got 2 other good ones too that we're looking at. So we will fix it, I promise you. We will be back to another Chef Michael, who will then hire their sous chef, who will then build up, momentum again in the kitchen. The servers will not be afraid anymore. All of those things will happen. And restaurants do this all the time. So all of us who grew up in corporate America or something, 23 years, we can't understand this industry. This industry is pretty weird. It's like the average time that a server stays in a job is 58 days, and that's a statistic. In the Department of Labor for hospitality, the churn rate, churn rate's a better word. The churn rate is double any other job that they track. Nobody, a lot of the resumes we looked at for chefs, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. They move. That's what happens. So restaurants go from being 5-star to being 3-star to being 5-star to closing. It's just kind of crazy. So, we're not abnormal is the point I'm trying to make. None of which has anything to do with Renew Big Canoe. Because even though all those things are happening, we still don't have enough space at the bar. We still don't have enough space out on the veranda for the acoustic showcase guys, for the big Ridge Runners events, for the comedy troupe who wants to be there now, for being able to do bigger banquets, bigger property owner weddings. We don't have the room, and that's our community center. So that still needs to be fixed regardless of what's happening in the kitchen, right? We still have problems. The building's just broken. It's just laid out horribly. So where the hostess stand is, where the kitchen comes out, you got to run food across all that. You got to go down the steps. You're going through the bar. It's even if we find servers, right? When we do, it's not a pleasant experience for them. So again, trying to make our employees a little bit happier. Maybe they stay a little longer than 58 days. Those things need to be fixed anyway. More indoor-outdoor dining spaces is something we all need. And again, we're not talking about more capacity. We're just talking about a better property owner experience. So I know it's hard, and I get it, but try to keep the things separate. We are working on this, and we're going to fix it. I guarantee you. We're going to find the right person. They're going to rebuild the team. All that's going to happen. The building needs help, and that's what Renew Big Canoe is really about. Since I'm up here, it would kind of be like if Noah had waited until the rain started to build the ark, we probably wouldn't be here, and there'd be a lot of animals missing too, right? So basically, sometimes you just have to have faith that we're gonna fix this. Let's get fixing all this other stuff, too. Thank you. Next thing, an online blog, top source. An online blog suggested that the proposed veranda side of the clubhouse will not be ADA compliant. Is that true? Well, first of all, it's not compliant now, so let's start with that. So these bathrooms that we have now are not ADA compliant. It does have an outside entrance that's at street level, so the entrance is ADA compliant, but that is not. We would never, this is back to the Magnificent 28, right? The Magnificent 28 would never build a building with a top architect in the southeast in a community where the age skews a little higher and not make that ADA compliant. It just wouldn't happen. But be that as it may, if you want a little more details, all that will be expanded and ADA compliant. This is still going to be at street level because if you tried to raise all of this up the 3 steps to get to the same level here, that is many hundreds of thousands of dollars of construction. It's not easy. But you can solve the problem with handicap lifts and accessibility right in this area. So J.C. Chi is going to take care of that. So you'll be able, if you're a wheelchair walker or something like that, be able to come in, use a 90-degree lift. It's already being planned. That will get you down to this level, something you can't do today, and you'll have ADA-compliant bathrooms. So that will get taken care of. Next thing, I heard that we would never be able to get a permit from Pickens County for an indoor-outdoor bar. Is that true? Well, I don't know. I was at Sourwood last night. It's good to know the competition every now and then. I was at Sourwood last night. Their indoor-outdoor bar was open and going back and forth, and they're in Pickens County last time I checked. But just to be sure, I called Pickens County. So I talked to the Department of Public Health, Denise Cox, and I said, Denise, I sent her the plans. I said, here's what we're doing. We would normally be over to see you once the vote happens because we don't want to spend a whole lot of architect money until we know for sure that we're actually going forward. We're going to do this. And she said, yeah, well, I see what you're doing. I get it. I understand. So you need to have an air curtain here. So right where those nano walls open, up in this bulkhead here, you put an air curtain, and that keeps the little bugs from saying, oh my gosh, I don't want to come in. So I called JC. I said, JC, they said they need to have an air curtain. He said, yes. And I'm like, And you've done this, and he's like, yeah, well, here's what's up at Old Toccoa Farms. I may have dinner here tonight, actually, Cindy and I. And if you look at this, this is their indoor-outdoor bar up in Blue Ridge, and these guys right up here, those are air curtains. And he said, we do this all the time. This is how we solve these problems. So once again, who do you trust? You know, JC does this for a living. This is not, he probably hasn't, there's probably nothing we're going to tell him he hasn't heard at least a couple, 300 times. So, yeah, we will put in an air curtain. We will make sure that we can open those doors and that bugs will not be flying in and out. And Sourwood is a good example of a smaller version, but they've got exactly the same thing. What if we exceed the budget? Good question, by the way. What if we exceed the budget for a clubhouse or postal facility? Again, it was a good question up until right there, as has happened in the past. Okay, well, stop doing that. But the first part's a good question. What would happen? Well, two things would happen. The first thing we do is we sit down with the architect and we sit down with the team and we say, what can we value engineer on this? So if there's stone over the whole facade, can we cut the stone down to, you know, a lower area? If there's, you know, we're using this kind of flooring, can we go to a little different kind of flooring? Just like building a house. Anybody that's built a house here, you do the same thing, right? You're basically in the process and the builder comes and says, oh my gosh, you know, the cost of lumber doubled and you still got to pay the cost of lumber because you got to pay the cost of lumber. So you sit down with your wife and your builder and you figure it out. That's what we would do. And if we couldn't figure it out, and it would take a lot, I think, to not figure it out, but if you couldn't figure it out, we just wouldn't do it. There is only so much money. We do have that cash flow plan. We do have that $6.3 million set for the dam, and we do have this beautiful, thank you, Finance Committee, 3.46, $15 million credit facility. There is no more. You don't go back. You don't go back to the bank. You don't say, oh, well, it's 15. We can make it 17. Nobody will notice. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So we have the 4 projects that we talked about that are part of Renew Big Canoe. When you add them all up, they come in at $14 million, and the extra $1 million is for the remainder of the loan that's already in place, and we're at 15. It works or it doesn't. So, you know, we will not overcommit the community. We will not spend dam money on the clubhouse. I mean, we just don't work that way. The Finance Committee doesn't work that way. So, again, who are you going to trust? You got to trust. We're smart people. We're not going to let it happen. If we can't value engineer it, we can't change the scope or something, we would just defer the project. We just wouldn't tap into the line of credit to the same extent. I read on social media that the postal facility, as designed, will basically be a train wreck. I won't read all that. Will basically be a train wreck. So, okay, again, I don't think the Magnificent 28 would design a postal facility that's a train wreck. So, Joe Thompson, architect, licensed architect, head of the Long Range Planning Committee, he measured all of the existing spaces we have up there. All the widths of the hallways, sizes of all the boxes. He and Gay Abbott counted everything up. Gay worked with Denis Morgia to say if our projections for what the developer might do, if that happens, you know, what are we going to need as far as capacity? All that thinking went into this layout with JCG. And so we know how the dock works. We know how wide each of these things has to be. I know many of you have never been behind the scenes at our post office. This is like nirvana to the postal people if we gave them that much room. And the package porch today, they come in on a little tiny lift, have to ride everything up and down. Whoops. And then they come in a back hallway, which was never meant to do anything. And then they go into the former freezer compartment, and that's where they sort their packages. So this is like so much better. They've got their own sorting room here. And again, we have the plan is we will move all of the boxes down the hill. Those boxes are really expensive. We don't want to buy all new boxes. So they're coming down the hill at some point in time. That'll be part of the project plan. And if we keep all the exact same boxes, exact same sizes, we'll have 20% more capacity. If we take the bigger ones someday and turn them into littler ones, then you'd have 33% more capacity. So this building can go for a while. And basically then we said, well, who's really in charge of this decision? Honestly, it's not Scott, it's not the board, it's not J.C. Chi. It's the postmaster at Jasper is in charge of this decision because we are a mail delivery facility for him. And he has to meet his rules, USPS rules. He has to meet all the union rules. So we had 2 meetings with Michael Jordan, who I got to know pretty well during the whole package porch setup and all the changes between little pink slips and blue slips and no slips and all that kind of stuff. So Michael and I do pretty well together. But it's been really clear to me that he makes those decisions, and the union, there's not a lot of negotiation there. So he went through this whole thing, asked for a couple changes. He has basically approved this concept, and he will need to sign off on those drawings when we're done. So we're fairly far down the road on this layout, but when we vote yes, we will go the rest of the way, and we will get Michael even more involved in signing off. So it's not a train wreck. It's been really thought out pretty well. It'll probably change here and there a little bit. Maybe we'll move the dock back to give us more parking areas in here. Those are the kind of things we will work through in the coming weeks after the vote. And last but not least, any other questions you might have? And we got two friends here that are going to be running around with mics. And anything about the dam or anything first, I can let poor Wes go because he's got to drive back to Chattanooga and spend the weekend with his kids, which would be good. But anything for the dam, for sure. Are you going to do the right side? And they're grabbing a mic for you there. I want to that one. I can do that.
Do you foresee any drawdown of the lake with all the work that's proposed for the dam?
Pop up. The question was, do we foresee any drawdown of the lake with all of the work coming up?
So I got the question. At some point for the spillway, we'll have to take it down a little. We don't know what that is at this point. It shouldn't be much if we're just doing the spillway. The other items right now, there's no plan or observed need to pull it down at this point.
The lip of that spillway right now is about a footish to get water out of the spillway. So I just wanted to know, you don't have to go down like 20 feet to get the water out of the spillway.
Right, it's come down 3 or 4 feet recently just for some other repairs. So I don't know what it will be, but it'll depend on how that design turns out. But I don't expect it to be 70 or something like that for just the spillway.
Yeah. And if anybody's got a question, say it to the mic so that it can be picked up on the broadcast. Tell us who you are.
Paul Goldstein, lot 2231. Hey, just a real quick question. We got 4 other dams in Big Canoe. Can anybody comment on what kind of condition they're in and any inspections that are planned for on those?
Yep. So Disharoon's in obviously good shape, except for we've ordered parts for a new STEM guide for Disharoon. As we were working on all that beach club construction, we were operating that sluice gate to lower the lake so we could replace the corrugated metal pipe that ran out onto the beach, all of that kind of thing. And we learned in that process that we needed to have more STEM guides in place than were originally put there. So the stem is a little bit like this right now. So we've ordered new parts, and we will have that corrected, I think, sometime this fall when maybe Brendan is back out here. We'll have him do that as well. So that's the dish room. The gate's fine. It's just the stem guide that goes up the tower. You've started doing inspections briefly on the ones out in Waterford, and we've asked, part of their plan is to get after those in a lot more detail, because unfortunately, I've talked to formerly Kathleen Rice. We don't really have drawings for those dams, and so we need to get into those. Now, none of those are high hazard dams, luckily. They're nothing like Pettit, and they're a lot newer, but we need to maintain those too. And we did build, by the way, that cost is in that $6.3 million that I talked about.
That's right. Yeah, I just want to point that out.
Yep.
You hit it, Scott.
Thanks.
Scott's become a damn expert through this whole process. So.
My next job is with Geosyntec. I keep teasing it. No, it's not, actually.
Hello, Bill Harris, Lot 385. I have a good question. If about the Lake Pettit Dam, I know that downstream of Lake Pettit is also Lake Sconty. Now, if something should happen, God forbid, something should happen to Lake Pettit, that would affect Lake Sconty, right?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. A major failure would, yep.
And so, so that both of these dams are within the safe dams category?
So Sconti, the other 4 dams are Category 2, a lower hazard, so they're not, well, really, there's not much required from Safe Dams program on those types of dams. That means the other 4 dams, if they were to fail, there's no risk of life loss. So, but if Pettit were to fail, it would take out Sconti at the same time. And that's built into the emergency action plan. So all that cascading kind of downstream effects are put into that modeling. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
so
if that
it's-
answers your question, but it does.
So part of our emergency action plan is we know how much water that dam holds back right behind us. And the reason we spend so much time on it is if there was, a catastrophic failure, all that water does go downstream. It doesn't hurt, it does a lot more damage further down and outside of Big Canoe, and that's the inundation map that you've probably heard us talk about, how much buildings and homes and things get taken out by the water. And so that's part of the emergency action plan, which is why we had those probably 45 people in that room talking about what are the different conditions, what are the responses, what would Pickens County do, what would Dawson County do, what would UIG do, what would AEMC do. We try to think through all that, and it's documented in the plan, and it's approved by the state, and then we practice it.
My name's Roy Krause. I'm 1238. If the dam is funded, improvements are funded over 3 years or whatever you said at $3 million or $2 million a year, that means $2 million of our cash flow that you are currently using for whatever improvements are going.
Yep.
So that means we're going to slow down whatever that $4 million was used for a year to do the dam. So are you also considering a property assessment for this issue in order to keep doing the road repairs and all the other things, since the dam's going to take up 50% of your free cash flow?
Yeah. Excellent question. So we have a 10-year capital plan that we maintain, and then we, by covenant, bring in a reserve study company just to also look and make sure we're not missing anything or anything like that. So basically, we have taken everything you're talking about into account with the cash flow model to say in 2022 and 2023, we're catching up. We're doing, we're running at that $6 million rate I was talking about, and then we don't have to be running at that $6 million rate. So even if there wasn't a dam thing that we were trying to do, you would see our capital start to come back down. So it went from the 3 up to the 6s, then it kind of comes back down to the 4s, and then it sort of sits there for a while. And all of that is figured into the cash flow study. So we're going to be sitting there for a while at 6. And that, again, is planned, and it doesn't account, there is no extra assessment or special assessment. Now, I always say this because I don't want to be misquoted. Salaries go up, sand goes up, hamburger goes up, steak goes up. We always look as we do the budget to see, how can we try to keep the assessment increase as low as we possibly can. But in this inflationary environment, just the operating costs and the salaries here are always going to be increasing. So it doesn't mean there won't be a just normal operating assessment increase, but there shouldn't have to be something unique done for capital or something like that. I'll give you an example. So we've been kind of in the catch-up for roads for a while, and now we've taken our roads, which were largely in poor condition when we started studying them when Bob Crouch was president the first time. Almost all those roads now are up to a good or very good level, so we don't need to be spending quite the same rate on repaving every year. We've also been doing rejuvenation on the roads, which is applying the asphalt binder, which prolongs the life of the roads after they've been paved. So again, you should start to get more time out of a given road than what we used to be able to get. So that helps the capital roll off, which allows us to roll the dam on, and we keep it pretty flat. So we look at this constantly. After some other folks, yeah, for sure.
Bill Andrews, lot 3221. What does the emergency action plan contain relative to earthquakes?
Restate the question. What does the emergency action plan say
For earthquakes.
in relation to earthquakes, correct? It's not for one type of failure versus the other. It's if the dam fails and all that water is released in 30 minutes. That's essentially what the emergency action plan. So it's a conservative release of the water very quickly, and so it could be a failure through another means. It doesn't necessarily have to be an earthquake or something else. So once the water starts going, it just goes.
And there's a whole table in the emergency action plan that basically says if we would say it's 6 o'clock in the evening and public safety's driving by, if they see this condition starting, you're now at a yellow. What are all the actions that take place if you're at a yellow? If you are driving by at 11 o'clock at night and you see these conditions, now you're going to an orange, now you're going to a red. Each of these things are all detailed in these pretty expansive tables that say, what action do you take? What changes can you make? Do you open up the siphon to relieve pressure on the dam? Who do you call next? It's all laid out. So it's generally not very common for a dam to go from like, oh, it's perfect to boom. That happened, right? So you normally are seeing some things start to happen.
We had a follow-up question there. And I guess along those lines, specific to an earthquake, here's what to look for after an earthquake, right? And we would be looking out for that thing.
Yep.
My question is not when someone visibly sees something. My question is when you get a tremor here in the night, when there's no traffic, what does security do immediately?
I got you. For just an inspection, if there is an earthquake, do we go over there and look at it right away? Is that
Yes.
correct? So it doesn't necessarily detail inspection frequency like for that, but there are just routine procedures we have in the O&M plan, for instance. So if an unusual event is what we would say, somebody needs to go over there and look at it. So it's not really in the EAP, I guess, but somebody would be going after an earthquake and taking a look to make sure there's no changes.
Short answer is yes.
Yeah.
In the O&M plan, if there was seismic issues or whatever, we would be out looking at a number of things. Certainly the dam would be one of the first. Yeah.
Does security department have that instruction
They do.
today to react at 2 o'clock in the morning?
They do.
I had that experience 20 years ago here.
They do.
And that
Yep.
was, so
We have a red book. The red book has been put together by consultants and is the Bible for public safety. In that red book is everything you're talking about. At 3 in the morning, what do they do when this happens or this happens or this happens? What do they do if the next pandemic happens? It's all laid out in the red book. The red book, honestly, is about that thick. And they are trained on it, the lieutenants, the captains, Chief Ricky. That's part of why they're here.
Okay, we're going to let you go ahead and do your follow-up.
Thank you. Since the dam, this is the follow-up to the question, since the dam's a must-do, and if it turns out that it's more than 6 million, it's 10, and we've already approved Big Canoe, then what's our firepower? And since it's financial firepower, because it may be not 3 years that you have to spend 6 million or 10 million, it might be a year.
This is a little of like sort of the same answer to the question of what happens if we would run over. So it would be value engineering on the replacement capital budget. So in the replacement capital budget, in that 6 million, there are clearly things we have to do, and there's other things like some of the slides I showed, which are really nice to have things to be mission oriented, like Bill talked about. So, for example, did we have to absolutely build, a patio at the marina? No. We were like, hey, while we're building a new seawall, which we had to do, why not create a beautiful place that property owners can enjoy? So those would be the first things we would go through. What's that?
What's our emergency borrowing capacity
So
relative
borrowing
to
capacity
the
is
fact that it gets
Yep.
to 10 million instead of 6, and it's got to be accelerated,
Yep.
and we've already
Yep.
exercised our line of credit?
So the first thing we do is obviously try not to borrow anymore, right? Because we obviously have 6 million to work with and look at the capital, what can we defer? Second thing, if we really had to, you've got that emergency money of the 2.8 million. We just need to be very comfortable that we can pay that back within 3 years. And the other thing that we never talk about, but Big Canoe also has the financial capability to tap into a $3 million line of credit, which we have with Wells Fargo. So that is also things that the Finance Committee could pull a couple other levers if they had to. Bill, you have anything to add about that?
Not really. Scott was saying, some of the levers that would be pulled would be deferring certain capital that, would be the nice to have things, but you're absolutely right, Scott. We mentioned earlier that we have the restricted reserve fund, which has a balance of close to 3 million on it. It's a bit onerous in that any monies that are borrowed from that fund have a maximum 3-year payback period, so you got to factor that in. But yes, we also have a $3 million kind of whenever we need it line of credit that Wells Fargo, which is separate and aside from the 15 million. So under a worst case scenario, we would have access to as much as $6 million additional dollars between the capital reserve restricted fund and the other line of credit.
And just so I don't see it on Facebook, no one ever has any discussion about tapping into either of those things. We know they're there. It's kind of like having a rainy day budget in your own house that's sitting over there in an account that you and your wife don't think about. It's the same thing. It's over there. We know it's there, but all of our focus is on managing the other assets we talked about.
Yeah, and just anecdotally, hopefully I won't get kicked for saying this, when the Disharoon problem arose unexpectedly, we had spirited conversation about whether we should use the $3 million rainy day emergency fund. We chose not to. We said we have robust cash flow. We can pay for it by deferring some other nice to have things. And so the point being, we're very serious about not using that money unless it is an absolute critical need.
Yep, 100%.
Does that answer your question?
Thanks. Yep.
Chuck Bunker, 8215. Wes, I just got a quick question for you. What's your long-term, 10, 15-year assessment of the dam? Is it fairly solid for the next 50 years, or at some time does it need to be bulldozed and start over? What is the sort of long-term?
Right now we're in that process of building this infrastructure we always talk about the next 50 years, right? So renewing it for that. The things that we are aware of now, that's what we're working towards, and getting the spillway ready for the next 50 years, getting that low-level outlet ready for the next 50 years. So overall, no, does not need to be bulldozed.
Yeah. Good question. Huh?
Do you have one up there? Maybe next.
Just talk. Oh, I'm Bubba Territude, 315 Valley View. Because so many people have asked about the dam, a lot of these people didn't live in Georgia. When I was a young kid, there was a dam that broke in Toccoa. And there were several people, mostly students, that lost their life.
Yes.
The reason was they lived in cottages and homes below the dam. We don't have anything like that here. The only people that would be unlucky if that dam went were the ones that would be driving through. That's the chance you take. I think we're in great shape as far as that dam goes.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Oh, sorry. A great point. When we had our tabletop exercise, that's what we started with, and that's really what led to the dam regulations in the state. That event at Toccoa, and I think it happened in the night, right? There was no regulations at the time. There was no emergency action plan. There was no required inspections. So all these are in place because of things like that to prevent similar things from happening. Thank you.
Good point.
Mickey Gray, 6201. A clubhouse question. With the push to get and retain some additional replacement staff, which is a very good thing, if the clubhouse renovation is approved, is there a plan for continuing to generate revenue through the clubhouse while all those disruptive renovations are going on?
Yeah, great question. I think that's on the renewbigcanoe.org. By the way, if you haven't gone there, there's a million FAQs that Mark Green's been trying to capture since June 3rd, or before June 3rd, actually, of all these kind of questions. So if we don't answer them today, go there, because there's a bunch of them. Hopefully, one of the first things we do after the vote is complete is tell JC to finish his design development phase and construction drawings. Then we will move into a selection of a GC, following policy and procedure 152, and basically when we get the GC on board, one of the very first questions is, how do we stage this? And my hope would be, and the thought that I have, is we would start with the Mountains View side so that we can keep operating out of the veranda and dogwood side, kind of what we do a lot of the winter anyway. Luckily, we don't have to mess with the kitchen almost at all, so that's good. And then we'll swap, and we'll kind of go to the other side. So probably the dining will not have as much impact as potentially some of the bigger meeting groups. And so, for example, Terry and I are meeting with Ridge Runners this week. We've already talked to them a little bit about if you're planning your big spring meeting, you might want to start looking at some other alternatives, because you might not be able to get into Mountains View Room, next May, for example. But all those details will be worked out once we have the GC on board, for sure. Hopefully.
Postal diagram that the package porch is at the opposite end of the loading dock?
Mm-hmm.
Does that seem logical?
It does from a space point of view, because what has to happen with the post office is there is kind of a separation of church and state here. They don't really want to come into our area, and we're not allowed to go into their area. So having that as a line of demarcation is not that bad. The dock has the most room here to be on that side, and they have, again, Patricia, this is so much better than what they're doing now, because they basically now have to deal with two different buildings, in and out, right? So they're doing the same thing we are as property owners, in and out of the truck, in and out of the car, all that kind of stuff. And they're dealing with a lift they won't have to deal with anymore, which is raining and it's hot and all that kind of stuff. And today they're sorting in this tiny little space right here. So all these are big carts. They're already put together in Jasper. The postmaster had no issues with, oh great, double doors. We just come back, we go right in here. We just start doing our sorting. We tell Priscilla we're done. Priscilla comes over, she picks everything up, and she brings them in and puts them on the shelf. It's not bad. It really isn't bad.
Okay, and a part two, which is a request, is it possible for consideration to have some of these square dining room tables that are currently being replaced used in the village station for card games? Right now we have round tables, which are not ideal. I would just appreciate that consideration.
I'll look into it. A lot of that furniture is beyond its useful life. In the last couple banquets, we've actually had some of those tables fall, which scares the heck out of me. But if there's some that are savable, I don't have any issue with that. Yep. I'll talk to Carrie about that as they start ripping them apart. Up here, Amy, or back there? Okay.
Brian Robbins, on the votes, what is the quorum to get for the votes?
Gee, let me answer something.
There you go.
Our bylaws call for us to have a 35% quorum unless you check the box that allows us to lower it to 25%. We never have a problem, honestly, getting 35%, but we usually do get it legally lowered to 25%. Once you have achieved quorum, whichever that number that is, then it's 50% plus one of the votes cast. Is that
Perfect.
simple? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Jean James, 8200. Are both of these major projects going to run concurrently?
I hope so. Again, that's a GC question as we go and do our bidding for these GCs. I would think it will save us a bunch of money if they can mobilize both of those at the same time and then manage their subs across the two buildings rather than coming up and then trying to get subs lined up again and getting them back and all that. I think it'll save us some dollars. So that's my hope. But those are the details we will get into once the vote passes, for sure. Yes, sir.
Peter Vallone, 2582. Seems like a lot of people have this concern, it's not just me, parking for both the clubhouse and the postal facility. How is that going to accommodate it?
Yeah. So we're going to build a big parking garage right in the middle of Playfield Park. And you heard it here first. No, parking is the bane of Big Canoe's existence. Easier answer on the postal or on the clubhouse. We have two different levels of plans laid out. The first is with relatively minor changes to the existing parking lot that we have at the clubhouse. We think we can get somewhere between like 45 and 50 spots. More major changes to that parking lot, which would require moving Choctaw 1's tees, moving the practice facility, realigning the Choctaw Pass Road, making the entrance to the clubhouse be direct into the clubhouse like every other clubhouse in America rather than into the garbage area of the clubhouse. That wowould get us more spaces and more money. So more money to do. So the board is, I think, rightly said, hey, let's focus on the building. Let's focus on the property owner events. Many of those happen at different times of the day when we don't have as much dining going on. And we'll see. We'll kind of see how the building feels and works. If we need to go to Plan A, it's not that much money. That would be in a normal capital budget to get the 50 spots. The other would be well into the future if we decided to open back up to do a lot of banquets and outside events and things like that. That's a different decision for a different day. So there's a couple steps. On this one, this is harder. This is definitely harder. Long Range Planning Committee probably honestly spent 2 years debating where this should all happen. Is it create all new stuff, put it out on the soccer field? Oh yeah, but there's conservation easements out there, so what would that mean? There's no water, there's no sewer, there's no electric, you're tearing up infrastructure, all that. And we think, or they thought, that the village core was still the right place to locate all this. So we do have some plans to improve the entrance here. Part of the money that's in Renew Big Canoe, part of the $2.75 million for this whole thing is fixing the entrance there, building out, it would be about right here, building out a retaining wall that's a little bit into that gulch that goes there. That gives us more direct and easier parking from here down to about here. And then we wouldn't have to necessarily do anything after that. Now, there will be days, December 24th, where it's gonna feel tight. And as I always tell people, you don't build a church for Christmas Eve because the rest of the time the church isn't too busy. So what Long Range Planning did, they ran those little rubber traffic meters and stuff. They put those down at the package porch, they put those down in the lodge, and they put those down in the existing post office and monitored all those different traffic counts. And then Mr. Trinkle, who slipped out the side here, basically did the whole analysis with the civil engineering guys on what capacity we normally needed. And that's what they designed to. So it's not perfect, but nothing here is perfect because we live on a mountain.
Margot Vallone. In terms of seating capacity, theater-style seating capacity for Ridge Runners and our new theater, comedy ensemble, etc. What is the maximum seating on the veranda theater style?
Perfect. 350 is what we think we can get there at theater style, which is amazing. It really is. Yeah. And you know, and I've talked about this a couple times, but I'll just say it again too. You know, this is a beautiful asset because this now can become a pre-event space for everything that's going on here. So you can do, you know, you can do wine and cheese and charcuterie and things like that for the event that you're having out here. You can do about 250 in round style for a banquet, which is a lot more than we can handle on Mountains View and stuff. Also, so you know, before I read this on Facebook, most of our banquet staff is brought in for the banquets. So we have a lot of people who have worked here over the years that still live in Jasper and stuff, and they love working here. They make good money. And so basically they're always like, hey, Kristen, if you've got an event, you got a banquet, you call me, I'll be back, I'll work it. So we don't maintain a big, you know, fixed staff or something to handle banquets. So we'll bring people in as we need them for those kind of things. And theater style is mostly, there isn't a lot of staff anyway. It's mostly just setting up, tearing down, and we can obviously put a bartender in here and do some hors d'oeuvres and things like that. Not hard. Yes, sir.
My name's Jim Whittington. I'm lot 406. The amenities and everything here in Big Canoe are fantastic. This is fantastic. I do have one complaint, if you want to put it that way. The practice tee for the golf course. I mean, this isn't 1980. AstroTurf went out 40 years ago, okay? And I don't know where they got it from, but it's probably 40 years old. I know they're going to redo and do some improvements on Choctaw, which I'm not familiar with what needs it, but I'm sure it does, probably drainage. But, I mean, can even $100,000 of that money go to replacing the AstroTurf, put out 30 feet of grass all the way over the same distance and alternate placements every 3 or 4 days and have like 4 different placements? Can that not be done? It's done at Pensacola Country Club and it comes out beautifully. Thank you.
Mark, did you put him up to that question?
Yeah, I fed him that. I can actually answer a little bit of that.
Go right ahead.
One problem with the driving range as it exists now is that it's hard to grow grass because of all the shade. And so, therefore, the idea of having it continually be on grass is a difficult one to achieve down there. And just the coldness of our winters, grass just doesn't grow very good in Big Canoe. So there actually is has been talked about, there is a plan out there for a driving range renovation, but that is not part of the plan currently. I do believe that they're looking possibly in the budget next year to replace the mats, and their goal in the golf amenity is to have us on the grass more, but until they figure out a type of grass that can grow in the shade and in our type of mountain environment, it's never going to be lush down there. Because we would have to kind of alter the character of that whole place, get rid of all the trees to really be able to grow grass. So I'm pretty sure that's the circumstance down there. But all of us golfers would like to see an improvement. But That's just me as a golfer.
Yep, good answer.
Yeah, apparently the new mats they're looking at, you'd be able to tee it up. He's got another question.
Why not have the driving range at the top of the hill, and then you have plenty of sunlight?
Yeah. That happened a long time ago, and again, that's just something on the pecking order of stuff. It's just not at the top of the list.
Yeah. It used to be a long time ago. It switched long before either of us were here, actually.
I like your style. I would probably be in the same boat, but those of us in leadership are not agenda-driven for our own particular wants and needs. We try to look at the whole community's needs, and that would be a lovely thing, and who knows?
Anything else? We're losing most of you. Go to renewbigcanoe.org, please. Spread the word, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody.